Ladies and gentlemen, we have a hostage situation in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Welcome to another edition of Dave Smith Unleashed, the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast, brought to you by MTS. Call them at 800-640-6873 for reliable on-time delivery, compliance you can count on, round-the-clock support, superior communication, experienced logistics partners, and mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment. So make sure you call MTS Transportation for all your shipping, freight, and trucking needs. 800-640-6873. Now, when I talk about the hostage situation in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, I'm talking about the situation with 73-year-old Bill Belichick and his young, hottie, 24-year-old girlfriend. You know, I've been calling her Jordon Hudson, but I guess she wants it pronounced Jordon. Her name is Jordon Hudson. And if you saw that 60 Minutes interview last week, where the reporter asked him, well, where did you two meet? Kind of an innocent question. And she many times has said that we met on a cross-country flight. He many times has said we met on a cross-country flight. No big deal. And she screams, we're not talking about that, because she's in the room, of course, during the interview. And then evidently what we didn't see on tape was that she stormed out of the room, delaying the interview by 30 minutes at one, and kept butting in and kept yelling and interrupting during the interview. And it seems like she has him completely under control. Now I get it. He's 73 years old. He's been to, 10 Super Bowls, and he's won 6 of them. I guess he feels like he deserves this. Now he's living his life. Now he's coaching in college football. He's, living the last years of his life, and every night he's sleeping with a 24-year-old. My father used to say when I was a kid, son, never forget this. The vagina is undefeated. And boy, was he right. It gets men every time. You look at men who are extremely successful in life, have built empires, being ruthless, become billionaires, genius businessmen. And yet what brings them down? It's a blonde bimbo with big boobs. Brings them down. They completely lose control. And that seems to be the case right now with a gentleman by the name of Bill Belichick, the new head coach at the University of North Carolina. Did you see that scene on the practice field last week? Bill's out there coaching. Now, she shouldn't be anywhere near the practice field, of course. But she's on the field. She's running around. She ran out there and put something in Bill's pocket and then took something out of his pocket in the middle of practice. She's wearing thigh-high boots and shorts, by the way. And Belichick's family is rightly concerned from what I'm reading about this. His son Steve's wife, his daughter-in-law, is saying this is unbelievable. She has him completely under control. Some of Belichick's family, of course, is concerned. And it does look like a hostage situation in that she has him completely under control. Now, here's more disturbing news. Since she started dating Bill in 2021, after that cross-country plane flight, if that's what it is, I mean, she was so defensive about, well, we're not going to talk about that. Maybe that's not where they met. Maybe it was under different circumstances. Maybe it's something nefarious that they don't want people to know about. But since she began dating Bill in 2021, she evidently has bought 3 properties valued at $9 million. Yeah, guess who's paying for that? And she's driving an $80,000 Porsche. Well, that comes with being a young, hot 24-year-old beauty queen when you're dating a 73-year-old rich guy. More disturbing news. We've all watched Hard Knocks on HBO, right? Every year they follow an NFL team around training camp, and it's called Hard Knocks, and it's a reality show. Well, this year they were going to do it on the University of North Carolina, do the college version because of the interest in Bill Belichick being the new head coach at the University of North Carolina. And they were ready to go, but evidently Jordon, that's funny to even say that, Jordon tried to force her way onto the show. She demanded to be the executive producer. And then she told the people at Hard Knocks, you treat me with respect or I will pull Bill's IP. So you won't be able to get any information and it will be difficult for you to do the show. And they finally threw their hands up in the air, and instead of, caving to her demands, they just said, you know what, this isn't worth it. It's an interesting story with Belichick coming back, but they pulled the plug on the whole thing, said we just don't want to deal with her. And how about the Super Bowl commercial last year? Belichick was in a Super Bowl commercial for Dunkin' Donuts. And evidently, from all I read, she forced her way onto that commercial as the president of Bill Belichick Enterprises, Bill Belichick Productions, that's what she calls herself, forced her way under the commercial, which, of course, Duncan didn't want, which the NFL didn't want, but what the hell? She doesn't have a line. She's just going to raise her hand. Let's do this, and, we don't have to deal with the BS. Yeah, president of Belichick Productions, Jordon Hudson. All emails and correspondence goes through me, she tells everybody, at the University of North Carolina. Now, evidently, there are big-time concerns. There are big-time concerns at the University of North Carolina. And there should be, as there are with the Belichick family. Because they didn't sign up for this. Some 24-year-old hottie beauty queen with no experience in business completely taken over Belichick's life. And he looks like he's completely under control, and he's been completely taken in this situation. Did you see his eyes in that 60 Minutes interview? Did you see his face? It looks like he's hypnotized. Again, a hostage situation. It looks like he has Stockholm Syndrome. And evidently, it is the Jordon Hudson show when it comes to Bill Belichick. Now, I can tell you a personal story here. I've kind of been through this. Back in the day, a young, naive, although very handsome, Dave Smith in my early 20s. I got involved with a girl who was a working model, and I was living at the beach at the time, out in Hermosa Beach. And I met this young lady at a bar, and then we started dating, and I was, you talk about completely taken in. You talk about completely in love. She wasn't a supermodel, but she sure looked like one, and she was a working model. And before you know it, I was spending all my money on her. I paid her rent 1 month with her apartment. I made a car payment for her. I was always giving her money when she asked for it, and she never gave anything in return outside of sex, which is why I hung around. But outside of that, I got really nothing from her. And my friends were trying to tell me, and of course, you're always the last one to know when you're in these situations. I didn't want to hear. I said they were wrong. Oh, I said I loved her, and she loves me. And this is a great relationship, and I was thinking marriage, of course, and wow, look at this. And again, I was young and inexperienced and naive, and I wasn't used to dating girls of that caliber, who looked like that. And finally, that's when my dad sat me down and he said, son, the vagina's undefeated. What are you doing, spending all your money on her? My friends, they didn't stage an intervention, but they were thinking about it. What the hell are you doing? Yes, she's hot. Yes, but you can get another one. You've got to have more self-confidence. And finally, after she did a total cachectomy on me, after I finally saw the light and ended the relationship. And of course, she was with another sucker in a week, and she was cheating on me, of course, the whole time. A gold digger, an opportunist. I finally saw the light, and to my credit, it never happened again after that. But you can see, especially when you're 73 years old. And Megyn Kelly said last week when she was talking about this, and she made a very good point. She said, the reason this is happening is because he's getting the kind of hot sex he wouldn't otherwise get from a 24-year-old. And that's about as good an explanation as any right there. And I can understand why Belichick's family is concerned as well. Another story regarding the great Dave Smith here. My grandfather was a very wealthy man. He started an auto parts business, and he started it in Oregon, and he moved down to Los Angeles, and it thrived, and he made a lot of money in his life. And he put his will together that was going to be split between my father and his brother, his two sons, my uncle, and that was that. And my father was the executor of the will, and it was all done. Then when my grandfather passed away, they went for the reading of the will, and guess what? For about the last year or two of his life, he had a new girlfriend that was around 20 years younger than him. They were living together. Yeah, we should have seen it coming. Guess what? Shortly before he died, he walked into his lawyer's office, changed the will, left everything to her, and didn't tell anybody. We found out about it after he passed away. My dad got cut out. His brother was cut out. And the girlfriend, the gold digger's family, got all the money, her and her kids, from a previous marriage. See, that's what happens. That's what happens when you let the little head do the thinking for the big head. That's what happens when you don't realize the vagina is undefeated, as my dad used to say. So that's why people are concerned about Belichick. That's why his family's concerned. That's why the University of North Carolina is concerned. Now, of course, one thing could solve all this is winning. If he goes to North Carolina and wins big, nobody will care about this. Nobody will care that he's banging a 24-year-old and she's taking over his life and she's a pain in the ass. Winning cures everything. But to me, that's the big problem. Because I don't think they're going to win. I said, even way before I knew about Jordon Hudson, when Belichick took that North Carolina job, I said he is going to be a colossal failure there. It's going to be a flop. They're going to lose, and he's going to get fired in a couple of years. College coaches, NFL coaches usually don't do well in college. Like Belichick, he'll think that recruiting is beneath him. Now, I know we have the portal now, and that'll help, but he's not going to get on flights and fly all over the country recruiting 17-year-olds and beg them to go to North Carolina. And really, let's look at his record here without Tom Brady. If you want to see the real Bill Belichick. No, of course, 10 Super Bowls and 6 wins. It makes him the greatest coach in the history of the National Football League. You know what his record is without Tom Brady as a starting quarterback? 93-109. You know how many playoff games he's won without Tom Brady being his starting quarterback? 1. It seems like it was a lot more Tom Brady than it was his genius coaching. 93-109 and 1 playoff win without Tom Brady. See, this is why. That and the fact that NFL coaches usually don't do well when they go to college, I think he's going to be a colossal flop and a failure. They're going to lose at North Carolina, and he's going to be fired in maybe 2 years. My prediction right here on Dave Smith Unleashed. But then, the new news that came out, well, there was a screaming headline. The University of North Carolina has banned Jordon Hudson from all football facilities. He said, wow, that could be the end of the relationship. Now they came out about an hour later, North Carolina, and said that was not true. She's still welcome in the facilities here, but let's read between the lines of the statement they put out. While Jordon Hudson is not an employee, she's welcome in the football facilities. They had to get that in there, huh? Not an employee. Wow, okay. She will continue to manage all activities related to Bill Belichick's personal brand outside of responsibilities for Carolina football and the university. Now, what does that tell you? When you look at the little subliminal messages in that statement, while she's not an employee, they made that clear right at the beginning, and then they said she'll be responsible for his personal brand outside of responsibilities for Carolina football and the university, which means she probably won't be allowed in coaches' meetings or on the practice field anymore, which she never should have been in the first place. You know, when Bill was coaching the New England Patriots, he used to put up a fence around the practice field to keep friends and family out, girlfriends and wives. They had to stay behind the fence. They weren't running around the field in short shorts and thigh-high boots the way Jordon Hudson is. So I think there's been some kind of compromise reached. Okay, you're still welcome in the football facilities, but stay out of practice and stay out of football business and just run Bill's personal brand. You know, whether this will be okay with that, who knows? But this really looks bad for him. Again, just look at his face during that 60 Minutes interview. And again, I know the feeling. I'm not Belichick. I didn't win 6 Super Bowls. I'm not worth a couple of $100 million. I was just a poor, young, naive, handsome kid. And I got sucked in by a girl who was a working model. She took every dime I had, and I couldn't see it. I was hypnotized. I was mesmerized. I had the same look on my face that Belichick has now. So we will see, shall we? Looking into the future. Now, I predicted he's going to fail at North Carolina as a football coach. Here's another prediction. When they break up, which is inevitable, she's going to wind up suing him. She'll probably make some kind of sexual assault charges or sexual harassment. Who knows? She's going to wind up suing him and making all kinds of charges and trying to get all of his money. This is not going to end well. But Bill doesn't seem to have his wits about him, does he? Whew. Be careful, Bill. Again, the vagina's undefeated, as my great father used to tell me back in the day. All right, that's it for Dave Smith. This edition of Dave Smith Unleashed, of course, brought to you by MTS Transportation. Call them at 800-640-6873 for reliable, on-time delivery, compliance you can count on, round-the-clock support, superior communication, experienced logistic partners, and mention the Dave Smith Unleashed podcast and get 20% off on your next shipment. Call MTS at 800-640-6873. Again, that's it for us, so Thank you to all the subscribers. Thank you for everybody to listening. We love the listens. We love the subscribes. And we look forward to talking to you again on the next Dave Smith Unleashed.